get rolling. Any additions or corrections to the agenda? One thing that I will add to the agenda is I had a meeting with Alex Lease yesterday, so we'll put that on the agenda and we'll talk about that a little bit as well.
And I did send them the agenda.
You what?
I did send them the agenda.
Yeah, he said that, so. Okay, and then we need to make a correction on the map that we sent him with that paperwork for the notification.
Okay.
So I'd actually talked to Cale about that a little bit. The map that we ended up picking, I didn't notice this when we looked at it, but it's rather old. It doesn't have the gates in the right locations and stuff. So we'll get an updated one sent over to them. Okay, with that, obviously there's nobody here from the public, so we don't need to worry about that. What's that?
Heidi.
Yeah, Heidi, do you have anything to say?
Nope.
Okay. Everybody read the minutes? We got several of them to do, so let's go ahead and take December 9th meeting's minutes. Somebody want to make a motion to approve those?
Yep, I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second? Is there a second?
I think so.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Okay, now we have the December 23rd, or is it 20? It was 23rd, wasn't it? Okay. I think I put the wrong date down on my sheet, but anyway, is there a motion to approve that one?
Is this the one we gotta make the changes to the right, make sure that we put in there that we.
I guess I do have one comment on that, but I just skimmed through it yesterday, and I don't believe I attended that meeting, and it stated I did.
Okay. I'll make that change.
I don't see your name on there, Thomas.
I do.
Where at?
Or no, or December 23rd.
Yeah.
I thought it stated the executive session part that was off.
Oh, okay. I'll make that change.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Thanks for catching that. So we'll strike that from the minutes. Okay. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
Yeah.
Okay. Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Okay, now January 6th meeting, that would have been with the commissioners. Is there a motion to approve that one?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, is there a second? All right, any further discussion with that? I guess the only comment I would have is I think it went pretty well. And appreciate all you guys' help with that as well. So, alrighty, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Okay, we'll move into old business. Hurdsfield Project, I guess we'll just dive right into that right away. Thomas, do you have any things that you want to mention before I turn it over to Tate?
I do not. Any updates per se, but one thing I wanted to touch base on was might need to potentially order a new monitoring probe for the area next to Old Highway 52. Just does not appear to be coming back online, so may have been some damage caused to that when that cable got broken.
Okay. Well, we will address that after Tate is done because he's got some stuff that he wants to visit with us about that stuff. So, with that, Tate, I'll let you take the floor.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks. And right on the money, Larry. I'm pretty sure I might be able to address some of these questions. One quick check. Can you guys see a PowerPoint slide, a screen here?
Yep.
Okay, sweet. For those of you who may not know, I'm Tate Liebenow. I'm with the North Dakota Department of Environmental Quality. I run the special projects and water quality standards for the state. And under this umbrella, the Hurdsfield legal drain operations does fall under my purview. Now, my predecessor, Peter Wax, kind of initiated the project, and I've had some substantial time to go through our operations and management plan. And, per some of the clauses in there, we are required as a department to go back through, update it as data become available, and see where we can better lend some of the resources we have in-house to more effectively manage the outlet, and not manage it from a regulatory perspective, but kind of make sure that both parties are getting the highest value out of the drain operation. Myself, our division director, Marty Haraldson, and our department deputy director, Carl Rockman, visited with Larry and some folks from the Water Resource Board last year. We had a really nice walkabout with visiting all of the sites, the pump station, and we had some good dialogue on some of the issues that have kind of bubbled to the surface in the past 1 to 3 years. And so I'm going to kind of walk through kind of an overview of the project, and then how DEQ is moving forward going to be, lending some resources and assistance so that we can maybe circumvent some of the problems that have been relevant in the past few years. So just looking at kind of the overall operation, right, we're pumping water from East Lake and Hurdsfield to a tributary. By DEQ standards, is an unnamed tributary, which means we have a certain protection on that tributary. However, we have this tributary meeting with the James River, and I think that's where kind of a lot of our sticking points happen. And I have a few slides in here that will talk about some of those limiting factors. You guys are all well aware, we have some monitoring stations, both at the outlet discharge point on this tributary. We have 2 more site locations, both on the James River headwaters and then a point downstream from where those 2 rivers meet, to kind of assess what is the mixing in this project. So kind of the roadmap is you have water coming from this Hurdsfield Tuffy area to an unnamed trib and eventually go into the James River. Now, talking about these limiting factors, we did a preliminary reconnaissance study, and we found that sulfate is kind of this problem child, right? It has this higher levels of sulfate in the lake, by which really creates all of these problems. Sulfate is explicitly listed in our state water quality standards for different classes of rivers. Don't need to go into detail unless you're curious, but just so you know, where we have this monitoring station 2, we have a numeric limit of 750 milligrams per liter. And then in the James River, we have a 450. So pretty drastically lower, and this is kind of where this problem arises. So conceptually, right, we have approximately 1,300 milligrams per liter in the lake, which gets discharged upstream to a tributary that's at 750, and then eventually meeting with the James that's at 450. The problem here is that you have these stricter and stricter numerical values that are required by state law for DEQ to regulate. And if we exceed these numbers, then point source discharges have to adaptively manage, oftentimes by turning off their pumps, ceasing to discharge, or allowing adequate flow to dilute. So again, having these discharging of high levels from our source to increasingly stricter protections creates this problem. And ultimately what we need is enough time and enough distance and enough flow to dilute and mix, in this case with the James River water quality. Now the problem here, as you guys are probably well aware, is the James River, this is the headwaters region, where there's more often than not, low to zero flow in these areas. And without flow, you're getting very concentrated sulfate already in the river. So while we may be meeting our standards in this 750 region, the James may already be exceeding this 450. And this creates a bit of a conflict where in our current operations, we measured baseline in the James, I think at 150, where we had a recommended value of 250. However, as we've collected data over the last 3 years in this project, we see that that baseline is almost double from what we initially assessed. And this creates a problem from the water quality standards piece. Now, we do have a operational flow chart in our operations manual that allow us to either discharge or not, halt release or just non-discharge. And this depends upon the water quality data found at our 2 monitoring stations, Station 1 and Station 2. And the sticking points with these are if we have exceedances in sulfate in Station 2 or in Station 1, we're not allowed to release as per our anti-degradation policy for the state. What that means is we can't contribute any more pollution to an already naturally, quote unquote, naturally polluted system. Or if the flow rate of the James River is basically 0 CFS or less, we can't release. However, while we're not taking real-time flow measurements because we don't have the gauge station at Manfred anymore, we can use historical values to kind of, project what the flows may be. And then I know that we do take some flow depth to kind of get some reflective flow rates today. But these are really our sticking points. It's flow and ambient concentration. And so when you look at just this broad spectrum of a discharge season between April to August, we do see historically with this project that we experience exceedances in our sulfate, typically in June, late June. But this kind of varies from one year to the next, but this is around the time. And so what it does is it kind of cuts your discharge season in half, and it's due to a number of limiting factors. It could be things like low flow in the James River headwaters, which unfortunately we're at the mercy of climate to do that, adequate snow melt, nice spring runoff events, even summer rainstorms. Without flow, you're not getting dilution and you're not getting an ambient sulfate in the James that it is conducive for us to discharge. And again, we have these already high levels of sulfate in the James River with or without flow, which creates another limiting factor here. And what this ultimately leads to is no remaining assimilative capacity, which means we can't add additional sulfate. And another limiting factor here, which is more of a logistical issue, is the downtime of discharge. So if we exceed, we have to turn off the pumps or reduce the gallons per minute. And we're waiting another 7 days for another discrete water sample to come in. So basically a grab sample of water for us to verify if we can turn this back on or not. That's 7 days of downtime. And if we still have an exceedance, that's another 7 days. Very easily, that's 2 weeks, and this can go on for weeks to months. And looking at some of the data that we've had that Thomas has provided me this year, the year before, and the year before, this starts to add up. And you're getting weeks, if not months, cut off of your available discharge. Now, going back to our operations plan, we do have in there ways that we can predict what sulfate might be without actually having to take a discrete water sample. And this gets to this idea of conductivity. And Thomas, I know you mentioned just recently that we're trying, you might have to go order a new probe for the monitoring station. And I think this is somewhere where DEQ can, kind of lend some of our resources to help out Wells County with this plan. And so while this hasn't been explicitly done in the last 3 years, we have received enough data to start to create this prediction model. And what this is we can use conductivity as a proxy for predicting what sulfate might be. There's a very tight relationship between increasing levels of conductivity, almost have a one-to-one relationship of increase in sulfate. And so by using things like linear regression, we can actually use conductivity, which is a real-time meter, which you don't need to send a water sample into the lab, to where we can predict within pretty high confidence what sulfate might be at that time of collection. And so in our watershed management program, we fund 3 different river gauge stations through USGS around the state. And just this year, we've had conversations with USGS on, we're pulling off a river gauge station from one of our projects on Blacktail Dam. Do we have any other projects where this could benefit? And so I had a lot of conversations with our manager within watershed management and with our division director and with USGS. And we all feel this resource could be invaluable to the Hurdsfield legal drain project for 2 reasons. One is that we can add a real-time gauge, so every 15 minutes we're collecting conductivity and temperature. This also removes the need for you guys to collect this additional analyte at least at one of your site locations, so it's reducing that cost. But there's also some strategic placing in this river gauge station, which I'll get to later in this, later in these slides, where it also may allow us to be a little bit more strategic with how we're managing this this discharge. And again, this all comes back to this flow problem. We're discharging right into the headwaters of the James. It's basically a series of wetlands, sometimes interconnected, sometimes dried up. That creates an issue. But what this approach and this extra resource allows us to do is it dramatically decreases the analysis wait time for sulfate, which, again, going back to that 7-day wait period, you may be able to turn a pump off, and then maybe 1 day later, we'll have compliance back in with sulfate when we use conductivity as our proxy, and we might be able to turn that pump back on. So there's not going to be this hard stuck 1 week waiting period for sulfate to determine our compliance. Again, decreasing that shutdown time during exceedances in the season, and then also decreasing your analysis and monitoring costs. And what this also does, it increases the number of samples that we can use, like conductivity, so we can adapt to changing stream conditions more closely, allowing us to make real-time management and not something that is done on a 1 weekly, let's get together and chat about this. And these values that we can use from these conductivity stations reflect real-time ambient water quality, which allows us this flexible management. So we're not relying on either historical values of conductivity or last year's relationships or last year or 2 years ago. We can use them for 2026, which would only allow us to be more confident. And yes, we're not exceeding. We can continue to discharge. And so really my goal for this year, and I've talked with Larry a little bit, and we've had many discussions internally, is that from now until March, so before our discharge season, I would really like to revise and refine our operations manual to reflect some of the contemporary data that we have all collected in the last 3 years, but also with this addition of the USGS gauge station as well, so that we're just constantly updating and having our operations manual kind of dynamic, a living document, if you will. And then from March to April, I believe this is when the USGS will go and install their gauge station at the old US Highway Bridge at just east of Manfred. So in the operations manual, we've had this gauge station there before. It was decommissioned, but we're thinking about putting it back there for a few years to kind of lend this resource. And then from April to August, we'll implement this adaptive management discharge, really see how well this allows more active turning on and off the pumps, and making that assessment of, is this gauge station allowing us more discharge time and less downtime? And then in August to December, after our discharge, assess these operations for the last 4 years and how well this gauge station would lend itself to the Hurdsfield legal drain. And then one last thing here, and this is kind of one of the important pieces that I think is almost like a hidden resource, right? So I made an updated map on the site locations for the Hurdsfield legal drain. We have monitoring station 2 at that class 3 unnamed trib. We do take an ambient sample at 10th Street. The issue with the 10th Street ambient sample is that it's in such ephemeral headwaters of the James that it's not really reflective of not only the flow, but what the adequate dilution and maybe the ambient of the James is further downstream. And then we have the site east of Fessenden, where it's our after mixing station. Again, sometimes crippled by low flows. But what this US gauge station is it's further up or further downstream on the James, where it's had enough time to both dilute and mix and increase flows and volume in the water. And it's actually, in a way, almost more reflective of what is the water coming out of the headwaters, the quality of it, which we're more worried about downstream sulfate meeting, right? Because I have a hard time believing in these headwaters that we have anyone using the headwaters of the James for municipal and domestic. And so there are downstream communities that do use it for municipal and domestic purposes, but where we're monitoring currently isn't really reflective of water quality when it gets closer to those communities actually using the James River for that. So we're really increasing the distance between the discharge point and where we're monitoring, which allows that flow, that mixing, that dilution, and that time to dilute. But we're also installing that real-time monitoring that will allow us to effectively have less downtime. And then there's some questions just for me to ask, when this happens, when it picks up more flow, is there adequate dilution of sulfate? At this gauge station, are we meeting that 450 numeric criteria? And where I can actually generate a moving 30-day average, which is more consistent with our standards. And, will this real-time conductivity allow for our more prolonged discharge, either in pulse flows or continuous? And I think with these questions answered, moving forward, as Hurdsfield continues to discharge, I do think that this is going to help out a lot with some of the problems Larry and the Water Resource Board brought up last year. And with that, if there's any questions that you guys might have, I'm more than happy to answer them. I've also put together some slides on supplemental data if you need it, just to see kind of the synopsis of the last 3 years at these stations over time. Let me know, and I'm happy to share those as well.
Okay, anybody have any questions for him?
If I understand that right, are we going to be trying to collect some data then off that? You're going to have a station up in Manfred, did I understand that right? We're going to be using some of that, correct?
Yes. So we've historically had data there, but currently it's not active. What we're doing this year is we're moving one of our funded gauge stations, funded by DEQ, back to that Manfred site, effectively turning on the probe station there. So we're going to be using data at that area instead of the zone after mixing. So we're allowing more distance for dilution and mixing, and taking more frequent samples at that area.
That should help out quite a bit in this situation. For one thing, do you want to back up a couple slides to that map you showed of the there you go.
Okay.
Basically you got another tributary that's dumping back into the James as well. And yeah, that should That should definitely help, that's for sure.
It'll help with flow. We don't have any ambient water quality on that tributary, but the name of the game here, I can tell you right now, is flow. And so we have our ambient river network group here, and Mickey in the watershed management program, she has an ambient site on the James, and she frequently does I'll say just on-site assessments of flow in these headwaters. And for the last 7 years, we very often do not have any flow in the headwaters of the James. And this creates a problem because you're getting standing water and you're getting constant upwelling of sulfate, either geogenically or from overland runoff. And if there's no flow, you have sulfate inputs, you're not getting sulfate transport out of this system. It creates a big problem because you're just getting pools and pools of sulfate. And then when you go out and take a sample of that discrete water sample, you're probably pulling a hot sulfate every time. And looking at some of the data that we have, and let me just fast forward to this slide real quick. So this is a slide of the ambient quality where you guys take the sulfate sample on the headwaters of the James before it's mixed with the tributary from the Hurdsfield. You can actually see in many years it's exceeding already in June. Even in 2022, this was exceeding our water quality standard in May. And this is without any addition from Hurdsfield. So we're getting no remaining assimilative capacity in the headwaters of the James, likely due to low flow. And we can't control the climate, we can't make it snow more, we can't make it rain more, but this creates a huge sticking point, because if it's already exceeding in the ambient water quality in the James, our anti-degradation policy prohibits any additional point source contribution to the James. And that's really where our problem is. So it's ambient sulfate and a lack of flow. And just so you guys are aware, it's this 10th Street ambient quality site where that's pulled from.
That would be just upstream of the river from Fort Worth Flex Farm.
What do you think about is the time for trying to implement something like this? If there's anything we've probably struggled with is, just depending on Mother Nature, could we be pumping this year in March, or is it going to be April? We always seem to miss that early window, because we know June and July is our tough months no matter what. So I don't know what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, so in terms of discharge, we really, there's nothing explicit in the operations manual about timing. I would say ice off conditions, because we can't contribute to something that's not flowing. Whether that's March, whether that's April, it's hard to say, but ideally when ice off is happening and you're getting snow melt or spring runoff or whatever, that would be the time to discharge. That's actually consistent with a lot of our 402 program, where they have publicly owned treatment works discharge during those times, because it's higher flows, which means more dilution of that pollutant that you're putting in. So, the timing is flexible, again, at the whims of the ambient air temperature, but let's say March comes around, things are melting, things are looking good. We want to get some of this water out. This is where I think we can have a call between the Wells County Water Resource Board, Thomas, myself, and we can definitely explore that as an option.
Tate, something I want you to cover real quick. You and I have discussed this before. As far as the levels set on these rivers, that's not even set by the state, that's set by the federal, right?
No, so the opposite. So sulfate itself is not a federal anion,
Okay.
which means that EPA does not have what we call a Clean Water Act 304A criteria, but we have adopted this number for a number of our streams for the state. So in the state water quality standards, sulfate is a regulated pollutant. From the federal perspective, it is not. Now, there's a caveat there because state water quality standards need to be approved by federal entities for it to be accepted as a state numerical criteria. So while it's not a number that was, or an ion that was determined by the federal government, it was peer reviewed and accepted by the federal government. And this was back in between 1967 and 1976 when we first adopted it.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Well, as they're monitoring this, and if they went with that new station there, would that be the one that determines whether you open or not?
Yes, yes. So instead of looking, and I should have clarified this with the map. Monitoring station 1 is really what we use to determine if we're exceeding or not. We still look at monitoring station 2 and the 10th Street ambient as our checks, but our primary compliance point is after it's mixed, do you get a water quality that is consistent with the ambient water quality? So basically, is monitoring station 1 more or less consistent with 10th Street? Like, that's the question that we're asking. Now with this new station, we won't need to be looking at monitoring station 1. We'll be using the new USGS gauge station instead. Another caveat here, and this is what I need to revise in the operations manual, is while we won't need to be taking sulfate samples at the same frequency as we do at monitoring station 1, if we have an uptick in conductivity at the USGS gauge station, like let's say we have a conductivity of, let's throw out a number, 2,000, and using a regression equation, maybe that equates to 460 sulfate. That will then prompt the operator to go take a co-located grab sample of sulfate, so an actual discrete sample, to verify that that regression equation is accurate. And then if that sulfate thing comes back as, yep, it's 460 or above 450 in general, that will prompt then turning off the pumps. So it's removing a whole station for you guys to monitor at, and it's only requiring you to collect a sample at this USGS gauge station when our linear regression model predicts that sulfate would exceed. And that would be anywhere between the usual 1 week time or multiple months. It kind of just depends on what the conductivity reading at the USGS gauge station would be. But that's what we use to determine turning off and on the pumps.
So in essence, we will remove station number 1, especially since it doesn't work any right now anyway, and keep the So we're moving it further. I mean, you could kind of think of it like this: we're moving it further downstream. We're already outfitting it with a conductivity probe that does conductivity and temperature. Unfortunately, it doesn't do flow, so that's kind of a bummer because we are using historical flow in a way, or I guess less accurate flow, but the conductivity is really what we're after here. And you won't need to take sulfate at the same frequency that you did at monitoring station 1. Okay.
So we're doing a site for you, and we're taking over the analyte monitoring until that regression equation would say otherwise.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Thomas, do you have any questions for Tate?
I think all the questions that I did have were answered. So, it'll be interesting to see how this works out this year once everything's up and operational.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. So we're doing something similar with gosh, what is that? Devil's Lake outlet operation. So this is kind of on par with what we do there, except DWR's funding that piece. So they're having similar issues with sulfate, and we have 2 compliance points for them instead of just 1. And what we recommended was the same approach is, they take sulfate about weekly at 2 compliance points. And what happens is we've allowed them enough wiggle room to where it's not as stringent as some of our other drain projects because it's pretty large scale and it's pretty further downstream. But it's the same problem. It's downtime after we've gotten exceedance to where we have to shut the outlets off, and then it's waiting 7 days, and then we have to wait 3 days for that analysis to come back. So they're downtime 10 days if their exceedance happens, and they're held at 2 compliance points instead of 1. The problem with that is time is money, right? And you're wasting daylight if we're having downtime. So I recommended that we put in 2 USGS gauge stations for them to do the same thing, use conductivity as a proxy for sulfate, except they're also doing flow rate, so it's a little bit more calibrated, but it's the same concept. And so I'm trying this implementation for a lot of our discharge projects where sulfate is really the linchpin and light, and so far it's been well received, and you'll be right alongside the Devil's Lake outlet this year on seeing just how effective it's going to be. And if it is very effective, then we'll have internal discussions on, maybe long-term putting in either some real-time probes for conductivity for this project and maybe for a few of my other projects as well.
Okay. Well, we really appreciate all the work that you are doing for us. This has been a thorn in our side for a long time, and we really appreciate what you're doing. Thank you.
Really, it looks like something that's probably got some potential here to do something. I think it's the best thing I've seen so far. So.
Yep, I'm very happy to help. And moving forward, if there's any questions or problems or just concerns with how the outlet is operating, downtime, elevation, feel free to call me. I'm always available. And I'm building the data spreadsheet so that I can look at a lot of our temporal trends since the inception of the drain till now. And so we'll continue to refine and update so that we can be more amenable to getting some of that flood water risk off of the lakes and hopefully ease some tensions and concerns.
Okay. With that, Tate, when you get closer to having the a new operations plan put together, do you want to just reach out to Thomas or myself, and then we will get together and do another one of these meetings?
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to. More than happy to.
All right. Thank you again.
Yep, of course.
Okay, with that, we will move into our next item on the agenda, the roller dike issue. Kale, have you heard anything back?
I have, yeah. So I had sent the DWR record in our order to Jennifer Vetter, who's the Assistant State Conservationist for Compliance, and she got me connected with Cindy Zachmeister, who is the decision maker at NRCS for easement enforcement. And she had asked me for a map of exactly where the dam is located, and so I showed her where that is in the DWR record. And she's looking it over, and she's going to provide us some written guidance as to how this thing can take place without violating that easement. So I would think we would have that from her no problem before the February board meeting.
Okay, I guess sooner the better, because we'd still like to get that removed and taken care of this winter yet.
If she signed off on it now, it it could still happen this winter?
Yeah, because
Okay.
it's all sod and grass and stuff, and it's not it's gonna freeze up. And
I'll ask her for a timeline on their response.
okay, because it's just easier to get equipment in and out of there this time of the year when there's no fields to deal with or anything else, so we don't have to be paying crop damages and all that kind of stuff. But okay, 55th Avenue crossing updates. I guess I will start on that one myself. I had a very lengthy meeting with Alex Lease yesterday. He was there for almost 3 hours, and they are not going to do anything with that crossing at this particular time. Is what he told me. Then also, they're still contending that downstream of this crossing is a 35 by 24 pipe. And I said, okay, Alex, I said, we'll measure it. You need to be there when we do it. And he's agreed to that. So, once spring comes, the water's done running or whatever, we'll go down to that site and measure that pipe. Because actually it's 33 by 49 is what it's supposed to be. Actual measurement on it was a 34 by 45. Who did the measuring on the Oak Creek that time over here? Which group?
Tommy?
Yeah, you weren't here when we did that.
I say it wasn't Tom.
It was Brad.
Okay,
We were both there.
okay. And I've looked at the pipe and it's definitely larger than a 35 by 24.
Yeah.
I never had a tape measure with me when I looked at it, but I was just driving by one day and I just quick took a peek at it.
Is that what we measured at?
You guys measured it at 34 by 45. Basically, that's a 42-inch pipe that's just rolled out to a flat bottom, is what it is. So it is substantially larger than the upstream one. So
At least says it's smaller.
yeah, Richard said at the commissioner meeting that day that it was a smaller pipe, and I said that it's not,
Right.
and it's like we're not going to argue about it, but we will just have them come and go measure it and be done with that. So yeah, and the map,
Should I send them that one?
yeah, send them that map. So
Well, let's just say when they come and we measure that it does turn out to be what they say. They want it replaced.
yeah, I would imagine that's what's going to take place. Yes. Yeah.
Or can you add?
Do what?
Can you add culverts?
Oh, I suppose we could, but I don't know, what kind of condition that pipe is in now. Because that's almost 5 years ago since you guys inspected all that inspections.
That's original equipment.
So chances are it's,
It's rusted on the bottom.
yeah. So,
Does water sit in it all the time?
no, typically not. So that helps a lot. Yeah, because there's a lot of drop in that area, so it runs through pretty quickly. So now he told me that in the construction record that they were looking at, it said it was a 24 by 35. And I've asked him to send me that because that's not what the construction record that we have went through says. Correct, Thomas?
I'd have to look back at the plan sheets.
Yeah. We looked at that quite a while ago. I think it was you and I and Jennifer. I think that time we were looking for some of that information that we, come across that. So, and then would you pull up, Thomas, or Kale? I guess Kale, you could probably do this as well. I'll just bring this up at the same time because he brought this up yesterday as well. Let's see, it would be section 27, of $148.69.
Okay.
You know, and they have brought this up before. Culvert in the gravel road on 51st Avenue. Okay, it's a south branch there, southwest branch, I should say.
This one here.
Yep, he wants us to take a look at it. First of all, he asked if they could go in there and clean that, and I told him no. We don't allow people to clean our main drains at all anymore. The culvert in that road on the west side, that's 51st Avenue. And I don't know, Thomas, if you ever looked or not to what the culvert elevation, well, no, we would almost have to measure that. Because you don't know the elevation of the pipes where the main drain crosses the east-west gravel road, do you? To the east of that?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not.
I didn't think so.
Actually, we might have surveyed that, because this is just upstream of 55th, correct?
No, this is quite a ways from 55th. 55th is over there,
Right.
crossing 1 and 2.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's a few miles.
It's about 4 miles
Okay.
west.
Yeah. So,
And whatever map I was looking at when I created this says that the drain ends before that culvert.
mhm.
So Thomas, are you able to find if there's a record showing that culvert was constructed as part of the drain? Because you're talking about this culvert right here, right, Larry?
yeah. And we
Okay.
actually control that culvert in our
We do,
operation
okay.
plan. Yeah.
Okay.
And I've farmed in that area since 1993, and that is never on the west side of that road it's never worked like really well. I know when Salaries used to farm that, there a lot of times there'd be water sitting in the ditches because it wouldn't empty out completely.
Who farms the land on the east side?
Kurt Bollingberg. We just cleaned that here. I think that's 5-6 years ago, something like that. I think we cleaned that
So
ditch.
leases were suggesting that they go in there and clean that?
Yeah. To see if they can get the water in, and that's not the problem. The culvert elevation is the problem. But
And the township agrees this is our culvert, and they're asking us to look at the elevation.
that's Germantown. I haven't asked or talked to the township people there.
Okay.
So that's a different township, and they're really easy to get along with. Now,
Okay.
since the drain starts there, if we were to agree to this, or if it's possible even, because I don't know if it is possible or not without going out and get the elevations, that would be their cost to lower that culvert, wouldn't it?
Well, if the culvert if the assessment drain starts right here, then it would be a township cost.
Mm-hmm.
But if the assessment drain starts right here and this culvert is part of the assessment drain,
Mm-hmm.
then it would be a shared cost where the assessment district would pay 60% and the county would pay 40%. But we just have to follow that agreement we worked out twice now with the county where we,
Yep.
give them notice before moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay,
you're saying, Larry, the stuff on the west side of the road is not part of the assessment drain?
not the ditch, no. It's in the Oak Creek assessment, but it's not. That's not our
Well, the
ditch.
ditch is not part of it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they're assessed.
Right, this would be
they're
private.
assessed in the drainage
Yep.
district.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's correct. I'm assuming that must be our pipe because, our gate is on that pipe. So, I would think anyway.
Well, it would be wise for the township to agree,
Mm-hmm.
since it would be the difference between them funding it entirely or them not having to pay anything at all.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But we just should coordinate with we'll have Thomas look at the record, coordinate with the township, and then if the township agrees it's ours, then we need to follow that policy with the county noticing them that it needs repairs and that they would have to contribute towards that if the elevation's off.
Okay,
Just so I understand, is the water's running east?
yep.
And Sally's want the culvert lowered? Or
Well,
not?
Sellies don't care anymore because they don't farm.
Excuse me. not
it's
Sally's,
leases.
Leases.
Yeah.
They want it lowered or bigger?
Well, they wanted it lowered, because their thought was the drain is blocked up somewhere in that little over a mile. But I told them, I said I don't believe it is, because we cleaned that ditch to grade all the way through there. Granted, there can be some places where you like to see where that dark spot comes up from the southeast. You can get erosion, washing sediment in or whatever. But there might be stuff like that. But that was from that culvert to the culvert on the next section line down was set to grade.
Oh, and
That
what was
ditch.
that?
I'm thinking it's like 5 or 6 years ago, something like that.
They don't farm through it?
No, they don't. No. It's it's pretty deep ditch. Yeah. So anyway,
Be
Okay.
nice if we could get a letter from Fairville saying they aren't gonna do anything with that crossing, so it's not in writing.
yeah. What are your thoughts with that, Kale? Something in writing?
It would be nice to have, and then I think we can say to them, if we get it committed in writing that they're not gonna address it without prior notice and talking to us, then we can stop bleeding the money and move past this.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Probably should have a motion to ask Fairville Township to do that.
I don't think you would need the motion.
Okay.
You could if you wanted to, but it wouldn't be necessary.
Okay. I'll talk to Alex about that then.
No, as for the section 27 discussion, I'm looking at the original plan sheets. It does look like it includes that culvert and it ends at that culvert, the gate.
Okay, great.
Okay, so
24 inches states.
okay, so then that would be between us and the county then to take care of that, if we're gonna do something with it. If we can do something with it.
How big is it now? Maybe you said that.
It's a 24 inch.
24.
We wouldn't increase the size of it either.
Same with the gate.
Yeah. So,
I think we should still, when the time comes, if Thomas verifies it's perched, just notify the township.
Yeah.
That we'd be doing work in there right away, but then, and then we can also use that to let them know that because it's on the plan sheet and it's on the assessment drain, then the cost of fixing it, if we need to do that, is 60-40 between the assessment district and the county.
okay. Alrighty. Anybody else have anything with the 55th Avenue thing? Okay, we will move on then. Okay, we're going to move into the new business. Reorganizing the board.
What's that mean?
That means the vice chair moves up to chair.
Well, the vice chair.
I move to the bottom of the totem pole.
Look at you go, you just gotta move your chair.
That would be reorganized.
If anybody else is interested in doing the chair, I don't have a problem giving that up at all.
Well, you look pretty good on it.
Yeah, right. Have you been to the eye doctor lately? I guess I'll turn it over to Tom and he can, for the chair position.
Ask for nominations for the chairman.
Yeah, you can ask for nominations for the chair.
Okay, got nominations for chairman?
What do you think? You want to do it?
No.
Why don't we gotta ask you because we don't want to make you feel left out.
I don't
Tom,
wanna
you
do
did
it.
exceptional at the meeting the other day.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
You got potential.
Yeah.
Give me a nomination without my name involved. Yes.
But you did so good. I don't know, I'm kind of.
You all did good. Let's just put it that way. Nobody got excited.
I'll nominate Larry.
Need a second.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm all right with that.
Doesn't matter, he's already there.
But we're gonna start grooming Devin to be the chair at some point.
That's when everyone quits.
I have a question for this board. There's no restrictions of how long you can be a chair, is there?
No, there's not.
There's none.
No,
Good.
unfortunately.
Not yet, but I force Larry to go to the Capitol every now and then to lobby for things, so he might slip one of those in there.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Well,
back to you, Larry, your chair now.
all right.
You made that up quick.
Okay. Nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Tom.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay. I guess all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay.
Oh, then you need a motion to keep me on.
Oh, for you.
Secretary Treasurer, yep.
Yeah. Okay. Is there a motion that we keep Tammy on?
I make motion.
Is there a second?
I second it.
All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. You're stuck with us, Tammy.
But you were nervous about getting that nomination, weren't you, Tammy?
Tough group.
It's kind of like a railroad job, isn't it? Oh,
Well, like I told the commissioners, it's one of the best boards I've had, so.
yeah. Yep. And Mr. Lowe didn't have nothing to say, huh?
He tried to cut me off. But.
Okay, clean out in Southeast 29, 148.70. That's down south of Fesman. Could you pull up that location for us real quick?
What drain is that in?
That would be in Wells 1.
It is right here, I believe. $29,148.70.
Yep. Okay. Okay.
The agenda says clean out in southeast quarter, but I don't have our drain in the southeast quarter.
Oh, it should be in southwest quarter. Did I tell you the wrong description?
Yep, you told me something. So
Ah, shoot. Sorry about that.
there was no
Okay, so
reason.
then we need to go back and look to see if we got an easement there or not. Okay. Alrighty. I thought I told you that, but sorry. I messed that up. Yeah, we've had a request to clean that drain from the gravel road on the south side of that section, going up to the large body of water, the black spot in the middle there.
Going from south, going.
South going north, yep.
Where is this, Larry?
This is south of Fesman. You know, Schindler Slough, that's what that's called right there,
Right.
that big one.
Okay.
Yeah, the wildlife owns that quarter.
Right.
If we don't have an easement on that, Kale, what's our options?
Yeah, we're gonna have to look into this. So the reason this thin blue line here is because that is just the flow line from this tile project downstream.
Mm-hmm.
So if I turn the permits off, there is something here where the assessment drain, I don't know if it ever included, it kind of was like a holding basin maybe where it never included that. We'll have to go back and look and see, if a channel through there was ever part of this drain project.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me like it wasn't because maybe they decided they didn't need it, or maybe there's some kind of conservation restriction there. I'm not sure.
But you can see kind of if you go out to the site, right where your blue line ends, right there on the south side of that section, right there.
Yeah, you can see the flow line here very clearly.
Yep.
But, whether it was ever actually excavated or included in the designs, maybe Thomas, you can look that up, and Tammy, either you